We are here with Jennifer Greene, and she is going to show us her beautiful collection of arrowheads.
Hi, I have about 1,000-year collection of Potawatomi and Ojibwe Indian artifacts in southwestern Michigan. So I don't have them all here. I have a ton of them, but I just want to show you a sample of the special ones. This one was a peace pipe. If you can see it, it isn't very well carved.
Wow.
But it is old. That's 1,000 years old, according to the guy who checked it out for us. And this one is a more modern one. You can still see, though, it's a pipe. Peace pipe, as we smoke our weed or whatever is appropriate. Now, many people think of Indians as having weapons to kill others. Potawatomi were peaceful people, and so were Ojibwe, unless provoked. But basically, they did not have weapons to kill people. That isn't what they were using these artifacts for. For one thing, another thing, they didn't need money. They'd have no reason for money or banks. And the original settlers who came across Lower Michigan to settle in this area came with a bar of gold they shared with each other until there was a bank and they could have a system of money. But in the era when 1830 or so, that's obsidian. I hope you can see it.
It's beautiful.
I would call it a bride price. The only place obsidian exists is in Yellowstone, so that's taken a lot of effort to get here and was clearly valued. This is just an aventurine, but it's still beautifully made, and it would be a symbol of some kind of trading something for value. Now, the really old ones don't look as pretty and cool as the newer ones. This shape, though, this is old. You can see it's sharp here and not here. So if you killed a deer and you're getting the venison and so on, but this is to scrape the skin so you have a way to work with the coat to make coverage for clothes. That's a really old one, and it isn't a very good one, but that's because it is so old and it's not as well made. This is rare. This is a knife.
Thin.
Very thin, like a knife. There's 100 things you need a knife for, from scissors to anything else. So they created those kinds of things for that. This is really
just even
old. It doesn't look very formal like the cooler, newer ones. But you can see that the shape has been deliberately made if you look closely to those edges and so on.
Is that done by hitting a harder rock on it with an angle, or?
With heat, maybe. But it also, you'll see there's a lot of different stones used here, so heat would work on both. This is one of the oldest, old-fashioned kinds of arrowhead, like to get a large bird or a small game like a rabbit. That's old-fashioned, where this is gorgeous. So everybody wants the gorgeous ones, but the really old ones reflect how much work and craft went into that.
And a different form of the history.
Yeah, and a different form of the history. Now, on the newer side, like for birds, this was for killing small critters.
Cute.
And beautifully made. Those are pretty new. They're not all pretty new.
Now, were some of these found in the woods, on the farm property, the beach?
We had a land grant from 1830 for one of the first grants when white people came over to settle. They came over on covered wagons. They went through Millburg, which was once would be the capital of Michigan, but it wasn't even a state then. It wasn't an issue. Territorial was the only road. The only other white people there were trappers who had come for ages. But the area was extremely wealthy in water, trees, all kinds of wildlife, and certainly furs, but animals were good for more than furs, including, so there was no reason to be fighting there. People got along, and the Native Americans were particularly friendly and kind. Potawatomis were a woman-generated woman.
And we're
women
talking
ran
about
it.
Michigan.
Southwestern Michigan, over by Lake Michigan. Let me just show you the rest of these so you can get a little bit more example. This is really ugly, but actually it's pretty beautiful if you can see the work that went into this. And it's a favorite too. You can see that's way more prehistoric. Not
Yes.
prehistoric, but that's a good 700 years old.
Wow.
Okay, so they're just, you can see also, they're made from different stones from the color. You can see that. So it's a good thing to share.
Yeah.
It's
a good
always
thing
the
to share.
white ones that look beautiful, but they made their
And the
arrowheads
dark ones,
out
they're-
of what they could. That was the prize stuff. And this was a big sucker, and I have a better one than this, but it's basically a pounder.
You wouldn't even know that that was anything different than just a rock.
It's shaped for a hand.
Okay.
And it's only in that place. But if you're trying to get a tree down or something along that line, or you have a deer that won't die, I don't want to bring up something gross that way. But I'm trying to say there's still reasons why you need a thing.
Right.
It's not necessarily to kill people. Okay, I have loved studying the Potawatomis because of their culture. Like I said, they were matriarchal. If your sister married someone and had kids and her husband died, your husband was expected to take in that whole brood.
Wow.
It wasn't because they were wildly promiscuous. It was so no one was left, no vulnerable person was left without a protector. And they had other things to do. They set up things to do for people who were disabled or elderly, including on the farm we were, which was the Jakeway farm, one of the first land grants in that era. And at one part of the farm, it was clearly a maker, an arrowhead factory, so to speak. The elderly and the young would hang out there. The guys would go off hunting. The women did all the real work, as they always have through the beginning of time, as we all know. Okay, we'll get off that. But if your husband wasn't good to you, click out the door. He doesn't get to stay. That's how it was there too. And one old habit that was considered a little, I don't think it was liberal, I think it was protective. But anyway, in the days before white people came to settle, it was just trappers. And they'd come for a year or two, get all the furs, take them home to their families. But in the meantime, the Potawatomis worried about these white guys being all alone for 2 years, young white guys. So they wanted to protect their virgins. So the married women could volunteer themselves to pair